Hello, I am trying to get my head around this whole YouTube thing, so I'm trying to record on Zoom now. All these different platforms, bit mind-blowing for me at the best of times. So I'm really working with this Mercury retrograde to get my story sorted and try and be a little bit more courageous about getting myself out there. So here I am. And I'm here to speak about this new moon in Libra, and I thought I would do it this way. And in fact, I thought I would try sharing the screen so that you can see what the actual chart looks like. So I know a lot of people who follow me are still just beginnings of their astrology understanding and like something to just be broken down. So I'm going to give this little experiment to see if you like seeing it in the chart while I'm explaining things, or if that feels overwhelming for you. Please give me some comments and opinions on this, because I'm quite happy to just do it in this way as well. But let's give it a bash looking at the chart. So this is the chart. Okay, I've set this chart for where I live in the world. So the house system is saying that Gemini will be on the ascendant at that time. Don't worry too much about that. You would rather look on your own natal chart and see where certain degrees are. So you can see that it's telling us that the new moon is going to happen at 2 degrees of Libra. And we can see that here, sun and moon are going to be together in the sky at 2 degrees of Libra. And just behind them, Mercury retrograde and Venus on her way towards the sun and moon, she will be at 20, hang on, let me double check, 25 degrees, and Mercury will be at 27 degrees. So that's a conjunction. And actually that period of time between 25 degrees to 2 degrees of 25 degrees of Virgo to 2 degrees of Libra, that's pretty intense space. If you have anything personal in your chart in those spaces, or anything in the late degrees of any of the mutable signs and early degrees of any of the cardinal signs, this new moon is going to be a lot more intense for you. And also, if you do understand your astrology, you can look where in your life that's happening. If you have an accurate birth time, in this case, it would be saying that that new moon is happening in the 4th house. So if you go look at your chart and see, I don't know what I've done now, see where that's happening in your chart. I don't know how to subtract that now. There we go. Okay, so that's important space. And so basically we have this influence because Mercury has traveled into Libra and he's now moved himself back into Virgo. So this space where this whole new moon is happening is very much within that Mercury retrograde. Mercury is at home in Virgo, so he's also kind of in charge of Venus right now, but Venus is in charge of this new moon in Libra. New moon and obviously the sun is in Libra as well. Mercury is also in charge of Mars at the moment. So there's this really, like, it feels to me like really enmeshed, because the personal planets are Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Those are the personal planets. And personal planets are the ones that impact us more on a personality, day-to-day kind of thing. So all of this is very enmeshed between Mercury and Venus, Mercury and Venus. Mars is kind of building up to have a lot to say because he's going retrograde. I think it's later in October as well, so it's coming up. I don't have the exact date in front of me. And we're in that Libra season, so we've come out of the season, and this is if we're speaking inner critic of shadow, we're coming from the season of the inner critic, or the anxious, stressed kind of energy of Virgo in shadow, into sort of judgment and attempts to pacify and balance out everything when there is something in discord in Libra. So those are where those two signs aren't doing too well, that they become quite critical and judgmental. So if you're hearing that sort of narrative for yourself, this would be the opportunity to go, okay, why am I being so critical of myself? Where is that sort of judge coming from? If you find yourself judging another, just pause, sit back in your own body and go, okay, well, if I'm judging him or her or them or whatever for whatever it may be, where is that in me? Where am I not dealing with that in me? Because whatever reflects for us outside, it's really, if you're doing your work, it's actually an inside job. So when you see something like really triggering you or activating you or creating that voice of someone you rather wouldn't be, I mean, most of us don't want to be super judgmental or critical or whatever. If you find that, then you come back into yourself and you go, okay, Why am I judging that? Why am I so critical of that? And some of us immediately go into the like, okay, well, judge myself rather than judge others. Try not to be too hard on yourself. It's okay if things reflect outside of you. It's kind of normal. It's what we do. You will reflect things for people, people will reflect things for you. It's okay. As long as you're being mindful and working towards understanding, and that self-understanding and that compassion then for self will also reflect. So the good stuff reflects too. So if you've got a deep sense of self-love and self-compassion and gratitude, that reflects out. You see people with that love and gratitude, and people will approach you and say, you always make me feel better when I'm around you. And that's because you're doing your inner work. So, it works both ways. Then another thing I want to just point out. So, I'm assuming you can see my icon as I record this, my mouse. I've done it again. There we go. That is the new moon, the sun, Venus, and Mars and Mercury, all tied up. But what they're also having is quite a strong connection to Pluto. So Pluto is currently at 26 degrees of Capricorn. We have been eking out that last decan of Capricorn for some time now. Pluto's a super slow mover. He takes like 250 odd years to go around the whole circle. So you'll never see a full Pluto cycle. But as he's doing this whole circle process in the end decan of Capricorn, which is the old order, and he's trying to transform the old way of doing things, this particular new moon is really helping us to facilitate that. And I think the focus, because the new moon is in Libra, the focus of where that transformation is power struggles and relationships. Power struggles being the Capricorn, and relational connections being the Libran side of things. So that's where we're kind of playing within those realms as well. How do I find a healthier balance of power? Maybe could be a good way to look at it. So in astrology, we use a lot of keywords, and you can make these sentences with the keywords of Libra, of Sun, of Moon, of Capricorn, whatever, and you make a sentence that kind of resonates with you. And then you sit with that and you kind of feel into, in this case, I'm kind of giving you those clues. Some of them will really land and some of them won't, and just be okay with that. That's just life. Another thing I just want to point out quickly is the good conversation between Saturn and Mars. They're having a good vibe this new moon, and they're the two kind of more challenging planets, generally seen as that way, often called malefics in the sky. And so when they're having a good vibe, that could just really mean that almost like an ease of flow in the hardest stuff. Like, I'm going to just get that hard stuff tackled. But one of the really important things that I want you to have a look at is this Uranus Saturn strong square coming up. Now, the whole of 2021, you would have heard me mention this, and many other astrologers, if you've been following other people as well with this sort of thing, everybody was talking about the whole energy signature basically for last year was the Saturn Uranus square. And it made 3 exact squares. So a square is 90 degrees. And I say this all the time, but a square is like creating a pressure. And what happens to the coal under pressure? It turns into a diamond, or it turns into dust. So those are more outer planets, especially Uranus. So it's kind of like the big collective story, but obviously it's going to impact for each of us as well. But in that big collective story, what were the main themes that showed up for you last year? The main themes that showed up versus old versus new kind of power struggles in your own life, and what you saw in the collective. Because although the square is not coming to exact, it is now sitting within a degree that's pretty close. Let's just say you're feeling the echo of you. It's not even an echo, it's an aftershock. And Uranus in Taurus is a bit like a what's the word I'm looking for? What's those things? Earthquake. Those things that shake the earth. It is a bit of an earthquake. So the aftershock, which is actually a big aftershock, it's not even a subtle aftershock, it's a big aftershock of that whole theme of last year. So whatever it was where you were going, this old stuff no longer works in my life, this new stuff I don't really know if I want, but I'm being yanked into it, those kinds of things, that's what's really being reiterated, and it will really show up for the end of September, full of October. It's gonna hover around quite strongly for a while, and probably you've already been feeling it. But that is one of the biggest things that I really want to address in this new moon, and probably I'll speak to it again in full moon because it's intense. But with so many planets in retrograde, in fact, just about everything barring Mars and Venus, because Sun and Moon don't retrograde. Mars and Venus are the only planets that can retrograde that aren't in retrograde. So that means we are in this strong aftershock, but this aftershock with everything in retrograde is an opportunity for us to reevaluate. So it was like last year when we had the earthquake, and then the next earthquake, and then the next earthquake, and there were three like off the Richter scale earthquakes. I'm speaking symbolically, obviously. It was almost like too much, like the houses were crumbling and world was falling apart, and we didn't have an opportunity to really go, well, how do I feel about what I've lost, and how do I feel about what I've gained, and all of that, because we were literally just trying to clean up the rubble of our lives. And it feels to me like this opportunity, although the whole world is shaking and we think the building may come down again, and we're white knuckled as we cling to whatever we're sitting on, whatever life raft, whatever little home, it's actually not that big, but we feel it as intensely. But now, because we don't have as much rubble to clean up, hopefully, we are actually able to feel, well, what has the dust is actually settling, and what has that all meant for me? And now, who am I? Because we are all changed by this. I don't care who you are, we are all changed by this. So take some time to check in whatever way that works for you. Like, I'm an avid journaler, but you might want to find another way to deal. So that is our chart, and I'm just going to stop the share. I hope this has been helpful, and as I say, I would love you to give me an opinion if you enjoyed seeing it in the chart, or if you prefer just to see me talking about it, and maybe you see the chart and it gets a little bit too wild and confusing for you, and maybe there'll be two camps, and then I'll just have to decide for myself. I'm such a Gemini, I could do it this way or I could do it this way, but one of my reevaluation processes is to be more sovereign in myself and to make some of the decisions, not based on what will work for everybody else, but just what works best for me. So I would love your opinions though, but in the end, I guess that's the way we'll do it. So I hope you're all happy and well. And if you're looking for individual guidance, find me on all of my various platforms and get in touch. Thanks for watching.